Hi there. In today's demonstration, I'm going to show you how you can allocate a list item to a member of a group based on a round robin allocation. So in my example, I'm going to show you my Microsoft list. We're going to create new items via either the Microsoft form or Power App that I've created. And then as that item is created in my Microsoft list, I have a Power Automate flow that will allocate those list items on a strict round robin basis to the members of my team. So without further ado, let's jump into my demonstration. So here we are in my Microsoft list. I have the basic out-of-the-box title column, which I'm going to use to record the issue that's been reported. I have an assigned to column that is going to be allocated to one of the members of my team. The standard created and modified dates that are created when a new item is created or updated. We have an assign order, which is a unique call reference that is also generated by the Power Automate flow. And then finally a reported by column, because I use this column to notify the user that created the item that their call has now been allocated to a user of the team. So if I go into the edit mode and what I'm going to do initially is just to put in a few different items. So new mouse required and slow PC, software update, IT purchase. I'm going to go for 6 because I know that there are 5 in my team. So we'll get a few more ideas. New monitor, please. And then finally, we'll go for a noisy keyboard. That's noisy. 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 We'll leave it at that. And then there's a required field for all of them. It is, of course, who has reported the issue. So I'm going to set the reported by as myself for all of these individual items. And then once that's done, I can go ahead and exit the grid view. And this will, of course, trigger my flow. So there you go. That's them all set up. Now, while we're waiting for my flow to run, I'm going to jump across onto my Microsoft form and a similar question, what is your query? So here we're just going to say, I have lost my laptop and submit that. And so that will trigger another flow that will write this to a new list item. And if I go into my Power App, I also have a form here within my Power App that will also write directly to that SharePoint list. So here we're going to say that buy me some more RAM. So that's my 8th item submitted to my list. So if we jump back now onto my SharePoint list, I'm just going to do a quick refresh. And we'll see here that we have our 8 items and already 3 of them have been allocated, and we can see the unique references coming through here. So we have 1, 2 and 3. If I just do a quick refresh, we're now up to 4 and 5. So we can see the order that we're being allocated here is Damobird, Miriam, Lydia, Henrietta and Diego. The next allocation is Damobird, and after that, of course, we'd expect it to be back to Miriam and then on to Lydia. So if I just do another quick refresh, we can see that we have gone from Damobird to Miriam, and hopefully the last one here is Lydia. So we can see the strict order that they've been allocated. The first 5 have gone to the first 5 of a team, and then as the next 3 are allocated, they're allocated in that same order as before: Damien, Miriam and Lydia. And then if we look down the assignment order, you can see here we have a unique reference for all 8, starting from the number 1 all the way down to 8 and prefix with ref hashtag. So this is all done via Power Automate. And the trick that I'm using here is I'm filtering on the items that haven't yet been, or that have been allocated, and then I'm performing a sort on that list of items and then I'm returning all but one from the maximum group size. So if the group is a size of 5, I return the top 4, and that's all based on the modified date and time. So if you think about this, every item is going to be updated sequentially, modified one after the other as a user is allocated, and by using a sort order on that modified, I can return, in this case, the top 4 that have already been allocated, and then by comparing those 4 users against the 5 that are in my group, I can then see which of the 1 hasn't yet been allocated a call. And so each time my flow runs, it will sort by modified, so it'll get the most recently modified items. It will check the last n-1 users that have been allocated, so in this case 4, and then it will compare that list of 4 against the group that contains 5 to see who the next person in that round robin allocation should get a call. So hopefully that explains some of the logic that I implement in my Power Automate flow, which you'll see in a minute. The other thing I just quickly want to show you is if I jump into my email, because I allocated all these calls to myself, I've been receiving calls here to say that the call regarding more RAM, for instance, has been assigned to Lydia Holloway, and of course the reference number. So that's happened for all of the calls that have been allocated here. We can see this is call reference 4. And also I've done the same in Teams just to demonstrate that you can use the Flowbot to send you a message, again with the reference number, exactly the same details as the email. So you're probably thinking, what does my Power Automate flow look like? So my Power Automate flow is all based on when an item is created. And it's simply that. I have my Power App writing directly to my SharePoint list, creating a new item. I have my Microsoft form. When a new response is submitted, we have this flow here running. So when a new response is submitted, get the response details and create an item. So it's literally writing a new item with the response from the question and the responder's email as the reported by. So once those items have been created in my SharePoint list, this flow here will trigger, and then I'm using this action here to list the group members. So if we go into Power Automate and just go into my team and have a look at Manage a Team, we can see here that I have 5 members, including myself. So these are the 5 people that these calls are being allocated to. I've used an Office 365 group as an easy method of getting a list of users. You can of course use a security group or distribution group, and I have articles on how to do that on my blog. I can leave that link in the description. Then once I have those list of members, I'm performing that retrieval of the items -1, so n-1. That explanation I tried to give you whilst I was in the SharePoint list, I'm sorting those list items by modified. So if we go into advanced options here, you'll see that I'm using the filtering, the ordering, and the top count. So the first thing I'm doing is filtering to make sure that I'm only retrieving calls where the assigned to is not equal to null, i.e. they've already been assigned, because I want to retrieve the top 4 of 5 or n-1 of n items that have been already allocated to users. And then I'm ordering it by the modified date in a descending order. So I have the most recently modified item at the top of the items that are retrieved. And then using an expression, this top count here will specify how many items to retrieve, a maximum number. So I'm using an expression which you can see actually in the notes or the comments of the item. And all it's doing, if we have a look at the expression at the top here, is it is checking the length of that array of members, and it's simply adding a -1, so taking a -1 away. I could have equally used sub and 1, but habit I seem to use add. So that allows this to retrieve n-1 items based on the strict ordering modified in descending, where the assigned to has a name already assigned. Now, one of the things to note is that on my trigger, when an item is created, and this is quite a critical point of the solution, is I have disabled or limited concurrency. And so by switching on concurrency and reducing the number of flows that can run in parallel to 1, we know that the flow will only trigger in a strict serial manner. So even if I create 10 items one after another, the flow will not run the next flow until it's completed the first, and then the second, and the third, and the fourth, and so on. And the reason we need to do that is because part of this solution is updating and relying on that modified date in order to retrieve the last 4 allocated items. So once we've got those items, I'm then using a select action, and I'm looking at the value, which is the array returned by getItems, and I am switching select into this text mode, which allows me to supply a single value, in this case the display name of the assigned to user. And this will just get me an array of up to 4 assigned to users based on this getItems above. Now the reason we've done that is because what we do next is we take the value from our list group members, so this will have the 5 members in it, and then we look at the output from this array, which contains the 4, and we need to see that, or check that it does not contain the display name from our list of members from our list group members. So if I explain that hopefully in a straightforward way, we have 5 users in this list here, we have 4 users in this list here, and we basically want to exclude everyone from this original list based on this second list. So if I've got 5 in here and 4 in here, it will exclude everyone bar the last person, because we know we've got 5 here, 4 here, we will only end up with 1 user. Then for the call reference allocation, I've got quite a complex expression here, which again I'll try and explain. The basis of it really is that I get the last known call reference number based on using this expression here. So first body value assign order. So this is looking for the first item that's been selected by the getItems, and then of course the assign order column. And I'm replacing, as you can see here, the ref hash with nothing, so that I remove that from the string. And then what I'm doing also is, if there's been no call reference created previously, so i.e. this is the first item that's been created on my SharePoint list, I have an if statement. So if the first value happens to be null, then we want to use the number 0, otherwise we use the string that's returned by this replace, where we remove reference hash. And that's just because obviously if we don't return an item, we're going to have null, so we start with 0. If we do have an item and it's returned, we retrieve that number from our assign order reference number. Then we have that all wrapped inside an int expression, and the purpose of that is to convert what's now a string into an integer, and then finally we're adding a 1 onto that. So if it's the first item that's ever been created and it returns null, we start with 0, we add 1, and then if we have a reference that's ref hash 0006, then we'll obviously strip out ref hash, we'll convert it into an int like the other option, and then we'll add 1 to make 7. And then finally, I have another compose action, which is simply padding that reference number, because I want all my reference numbers to be a 5-digit number. So I'm padding it with the zeros. So you can see here I'm using the concat expression. We have ref hash as the first string that we're concatenating. And then we're creating a substring, which is based on 5 zeros. But with substring, you can specify the starting number or value of the string, which is value or string position 1, and then I'm using another expression, subtract, where we're subtracting from the number 5 the length of our call reference. So what does that mean? So if we have created a number here, I gave the example of 6, I've now made it 7, the length of the number 7 as a string is 1. So we'll simply be doing 5 minus 1 is 4, which will mean that this will be equal to substring of 5 zeros from position 1 to position 4, which will return that as a string. And then the final part of our concatenation is, of course, the call reference, which is based on this number here. So it would append the 7. And so we'd end up with ref hash, 4 zeros and a 7. Right, if you're still following me, moving on to the update item, which again is a very key part to this process. We need to update that item because we're relying on the modified, and we also want to assign that name that we've selected. So that's based on the first display name from that filter array. And we're also assigning our call reference, which is based on this call reference padded. The other two items are just the ID and the title that I've taken from the original trigger. So they don't update, but I'm just including them because they are required fields. Then I have a delay of 5 seconds, and the reason for the delay is to ensure that every single item that I create has a unique modified date and time. So assuming it's all based on individual seconds rather than milliseconds, I've inserted a 5-second delay here so that we know that every time we update an item, it will have a unique modified date and time. Then the final piece of the puzzle is just sending an email, or in fact posting a message. So they're identical. It's based on the reported by email, and then we have a message just to say your call regarding, and that's the title from the original item, who it's been assigned to, and of course what your reference number is. So if we have a quick look maybe at the history, some of that will make a bit more sense. I'll just quickly jump into one of the history runs. So the item has been triggered, we list the group members, and we can see from the output here some of the names that are included, Miriam and Henrietta and Diego. We get our items, which will only be based on the 4. Then we use a select to return those 4. So you can see here that it's taken this as an input and simply returned an array of display names. Then we use the filter array. So the filter array will take the response from our list group members, and it will of course exclude anyone that exists in this array here. So if we go into filter array, we will see that we end up with just the one user. So we can see that Lydia is the one that's been chosen for the next allocation, and of course she's not in this array here. Call reference, we can see it's made the call reference 8, presumably the previous one was 7. We can see our nicely padded call reference here with the ref hash, the 4 zeros and the 8. We update the item with our reference number and who it's been assigned to. And then finally, the last piece of the puzzle, we have the delay, but then we have the sending an email and the posting a message in a chat or a channel. So that marks the end of the demonstration. I do have a couple of articles which I've mentioned already. I'll have them in the description. So not only have I got an article on how to implement a round robin and also another technique of doing a similar thing, I also have an article on how to create that unique call reference if that's something that's of interest to you. So learning how to pad these strings, and of course, as well as using it as a call reference, you could use it as a file name, for instance, if you want to pad or include a reference for files as they're created. So as before, if there's anything you have questions about, please leave the comments below, and I'd be curious to hear of your use cases, how you might use this, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.